in the time it took me to prepare this show, it's now Thursday morning. But it was well worth staying up for because the Montreal Canadiens come away with a 2-1 overtime win over the Calgary Flames to start their Western road trip. But it wasn't pretty. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Kosta here from PuckTalk Montreal, welcoming you to another post-game show. I don't know what to say. You know, in the preview show, I came out and said that the Canadiens needed to be disciplined. They needed to win the special teams battle. They needed to make sure that they attacked in transition. And guess what? None of that happened in this hockey game. The only good thing that did happen is that there was goaltending. But let's take a look at the highlights. But before we do, let's talk about our partner, our first partner, and that is InstaCustoms. They're your number one destination for custom apparel printing, rated the highest print shop in Canada with over 3,000 Google reviews, a 4.9 star rating, and they were nominated for a 2024 Canadian Business Choice Award. They print on all your favorite clothing, even coffee and travel mugs, and yes, they also have embroidery. Most orders are printed and shipped the very same day, and large orders in less than 3 days with free shipping. Open 7 days a week. Go visit them on Stanley Street. Easy to remember because it ties in with the Habs' ultimate goal of winning the Stanley Cup. So whether it's for yourself, a loved one, or your business, trust InstaCustoms. Visit them, like I said, in person on Stanley Street or order online at instacustoms.com. So it looked like early on in this hockey game, the Calgary Flames were going to push the envelope really hard on the Canadiens. And they did. For the most part, the first 10 minutes belonged to the Calgary Flames. But then, late in the first period, the Montreal Canadiens score on the power play, and it's none other than Zach Baldzuk getting a power play goal, fourth of the season. Hudson to Suzuki, coming into the slot, Baldzuk, and he hammers it home past Wolf to make it 1-0 for Montreal. And that's how it stood. Here's the goal again for the better part of the entire game. And I would have gone out and gotten all kinds of goaltending highlights, but I don't think there were any out there to really pull up or any packages for that matter just yet. But the goaltending from that point, even before, to the tying goal was outstanding for both the Canadiens and the Calgary Flames. Dustin Wolf, as I said, and Jakub Dobes put on a goaltending clinic. At the end of the day, what were the shots on goal? The shots on goal were, I can't see very clear, 37-28 in favor of the Calgary Flames. But that's to say that even though the Canadiens ended up with less shots, they got more quality on Dustin Wolf. But let's put that aside for now. In the third period, an absolute brain fart of a play by Dobson leads to the tying goal scored by big goon Adam Klapka. This is a simple play normally. Dobson skates out from behind the net and decides to cut through the middle. Back pressure applied there. Klapka gets the puck, and he manages to put it home past Jakub Dobes. Again, here it is. For some reason, Dobson decides to cut into the middle. Klapka takes away the puck, and he fires it home. I'm going to break that play down for you to a T to tell you what went wrong on so many levels on that play. Number one, Dobson should have never tried to skate it up the ice. He should have chipped it off the boards and out to make the safe play because he was the last defenseman back. Number two, he wasn't out there with his regular partner, that being Mike Matheson. Instead, Alexandre Carrier was on the ice, and Carrier was on the right side. Dobson went to the left, cut back to the right, and Carrier remained on the right. What happens? The left side of the ice remains open. You get two-man back pressure there, creating an odd man situation on Dobson. The puck is stripped. Klapka shoots. He scores. And there you have it. A really, really poor decision by Noah Dobson in his own defensive zone. You need to take care of that puck. That leads to the tying goal. And it wasn't for a lack of effort by the Calgary Flames. They pushed. So did the Canadiens. They got a goal post from Nick Suzuki. Glorious chances on a breakaway by Suzuki and Josh Anderson. But neither of them could put the puck home. So we go to overtime. And who's the hero? Despite the fact that Mike Matheson puts the puck in the net, all the credit here has to go to Ivan Demidov. As you watch him, he brings the puck to the far corner, everybody waiting him out, and then backdoor for Matheson, and he scores. He put the entire Calgary defense to sleep, leaving no chance for Wolf to make a save here. Wolf focusing on him as well, doesn't realize the back pressure from Matheson, And there you have it. The Montreal Canadiens come away with a 2-1 overtime win, take a quick shower, pop on a flight, and they end up going up against the Oilers tomorrow. Before we get through all of that, let's analyze what happened in this hockey game. And to do that, we have to talk about our other partner, and that is cheapesttshirts.ca. Proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers, cheapesttshirts.ca delivers unbeatable value. With over 1,000 products and more than 36 trusted brands like Gildan jerseys and American Apparel, their selection is unmatched. Cheapesttshirts.ca is the go-to source for businesses, events, apparel printing companies, and resellers, or people just wanting the best deals on everyday clothing. Plus, enjoy free shipping on larger orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes ordering online a breeze. Get the cheapest deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. So we talked about the keys to victories for the Montreal Canadiens yesterday. We said, take advantage of the weak defense. They give up a lot of high-danger chances. The Canadiens got a lot of high-danger chances, but Dustin Wolf was there. They lacked consistency and momentum. They had it, they lost it, and the Canadiens gave it right back to them by taking a ton of penalties in the second period. Uncharacteristic for Montreal because they've been so disciplined, but a lot of these penalties were stick penalties, reaching in, hooks, etc. So, those are penalties that the Canadiens very often get in the second period. That comes from the fact that the Canadiens can't make a line change for the life of them. Why? To me, it's simple. It's because what happens is the minute the puck goes in deep, the priority during the second period is for the forwards to change. That's wrong. In the second period, because of the fact that the defensemen are so far away from your bench, your priority should be your defensemen changing first. Okay? Not the other way around. The way it works is the puck gets in deep, the forwards apply forecheck pressure to allow the defenseman to change without the puck coming back out the other way. That's not what's happening here. Instead, players on the Montreal Canadiens, including the player that dumps the puck in, decide, I'm going to go for a change. And as Calgary comes back out, the three other forwards come from the bench, and the defensemen are stuck staying on the ice, sometimes for prolonged shifts if the other team keeps possession. That is what Calgary did. If there's one thing the Calgary Flames do extremely well, they forecheck to a T. Okay? And so that's what the Montreal Canadiens had to deal with, and that's where the Montreal Canadiens made that mistake. They need to clean that up in the second period. They cannot afford to allow their defensemen to change last in situations like the second period where you have the longer change. That's not how it works. First and third, again, no problem. Forwards can go first because they're the ones furthest from the bench. I have no problem with that. But in the second, there has to be a change in philosophy. It's something that you have to recognize and you have to change. And it's not the coaching staff, because the coaches have mentioned it. Marty St. Louis has talked about it not once, twice, but 3 times in his post-game press conferences about the second period line changes. And here it is again. The same craziness comes out. How long is it going to take? You got to drill it into your players, man. And how long it takes to respond is on them. It's not on the coach. But you got to keep passing on the same message. Get pucks in deep in the second. Make sure you forecheck hard to allow your defenseman to change. Next game comes up. Guys, don't forget. Dump the pucks in deep during the second. Get on the forecheck. Make sure you give your D time to change. That's it. And so long as you continue drilling that into them, then the second period becomes a little bit easier. The Canadiens also failed to recognize the fact that they didn't get off to that great start that they have been in the last few days, right? Instead, it was Calgary that carried the pace early on. Calgary, of course, they've lost 7 straight. They get a point in this hockey game, but they're desperate for a win. They've only got one on the season, and it was a shootout win against the Edmonton Oilers in the first game of the season. They're desperate to win hockey games. They're desperate to score goals. They faced a good Jakub Dobes tonight. The Canadiens came away with just 1 goal against, and a lot of that had to do with Dobes' goaltending. But overall, I mean, the Canadiens needed to get that momentum. They never did. Take a look at the high-quality danger chances. That's the one thing that the Canadiens did extremely well tonight, and they were faced with a goaltender who had a red-hot game, and that's Dustin Wolf. Save after save after save, time and time again, whether it was on Slavkovsky, Suzuki, Caulfield, Anderson, you name it. Dustin Wolf was there. So Calgary, lucky to have a goaltender, much like back in the days when they had Mika Kiprasov, who could stop pucks despite the fact that their defense isn't playing at their best. The Canadiens had to tighten up defensively. And they had to force the Calgary Flames into bad decisions. And for the most part, they did, right? Especially on the penalty kills. The whole reason why the Flames couldn't score. Because the Flames power play likes to carry the puck up high. They're not like the Canadiens where they use a half wall. So whether it's Anderson at the point or whether it's Weegar, they tend to keep the puck up high and pass it between the defensemen before it actually gets in deep. They don't use 4 forwards on the power play. They use 3 and 2. So what the Canadiens did was every time the puck was passed from one defenseman to the other, they pressured the blue line, more often than not, getting in the way of the defenseman and getting the puck back out across the blue line, forcing the Flames to reset their power play. Great job by the Canadiens tonight. Got to give them full credit for that. But the other part is they needed to stay disciplined, and they didn't. And in the second period, when they took those 4 penalties, it really changed the momentum of the hockey game. A hungry team like the Calgary Flames is going to push nonstop. And the fact that you're on a road trip, the fact that your guys just came off a plane yesterday, the fact that your guys are going to be tired because of the time change, those are all things you have to factor in here. And so what happens? Well, you end up with the Montreal Canadiens taking longer shifts than they need to, especially because those 4 penalties came in the second period. As I said, on the ice, way too long. Defensemen are tired, forwards get tired, and what happens? You end up with bad consequences. But Jakub Dobes stopped 18 shots in that second period. You want to know why that game stayed 1-0 into the third period? There's your reason. Nothing to do with the way the Canadiens played, everything to do with Jakub Dobes. Finally, they needed to sustain pressure in the offensive zone. They didn't manage to do that. It was the other way around. It was the Calgary Flames establishing pressure, getting presence at the net front, screens in front of Dobes. Again, he did a fantastic job working through those screens. But overall, the Calgary Flames actually pulled off the game plan I had laid out for the Canadiens better than the Canadiens did. Ultimately, though, it was a battle of two goaltenders. And what happened? Well, Dobes came out on top. Going into this hockey game, Dustin Wolf was 3-0, allowing, I think it was 2 goals in 3 games, and the last game was a shutout. So, you know, got to give him props. That kid's a great goaltender. He ended up 3rd in Calder voting last season behind Lane Hudson and Macklin Celebrini. That's no small thing to look at, right? Especially when it comes to a goaltender. Goalies don't really get all the love when it comes to Rookie of the Year all the time. And for him to finish 3rd, that speaks volumes towards the quality of his game. And that's where the game was won and lost. It was in the net. And no fault of anybody who was between the pipes tonight, whether the game was won or lost by either team. Goalies could have skated off the ice with their heads held high because they did their jobs extremely well. But it came down to the fact that Calgary has trouble scoring goals, and the Canadiens just didn't follow the game plan where they needed to get pucks in deep. They needed to get pressure on the defense, which is very weak on the Calgary side. Create opportunities off the cycle as opposed to working in transition and being able to score. And the other thing that they really didn't do was break down the Calgary forecheck. If there's one thing the Calgary Flames did extremely well in this hockey game is they forced the Canadiens into making east-west passes more often than they were comfortable with, especially between defensive partners. Calgary was getting in hard on the forecheck. Pucks were going from one defenseman to the other. Calgary was forechecking too, and they did a great job at clogging up the neutral zone, forcing the Canadiens to try to get pucks in deep as opposed to using their transition game. That's where that change had to come in. That's what I talked about. The Canadiens needed to take advantage either of the hard forecheck and get past it to create that transition game, or if they couldn't get out in transition, what they needed to do is make sure they took care of the middle of the ice, dominated, and take control. They didn't do either of those things. They're lucky to come away with the 2 points in this hockey game. They're even lucky to come away with 1. Fair is fair here, right? So now you move from the Calgary Flames and we look ahead to tomorrow's battle against the Edmonton Oilers. I believe game time in Edmonton tomorrow is 9 p.m. I'll check that schedule to make sure I'm right. Let me go back here. Yep, indeed, it's 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And what do we expect from the Edmonton Oilers? Well, there's always the dynamic duo of, brain cramp. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. The Connor McDavid got his first goal of the season the other day against the Ottawa Senators. The Edmonton Oilers flying back to Edmonton overnight. They flew in today, actually, and they're going to take on the Canadiens tomorrow. So what do we expect? Well, they're going to be pushing, obviously. Those two guys, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, are the masters of creating offense for the Edmonton Oilers. You know, complimentary piece there, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, always a threat. He's been scoring goals as well for Edmonton. But the one key piece that Edmonton needs to take care of, and they never do, is their goaltending. And their defense just hasn't been as good as it has been in previous seasons. They're off to a rough start. Evan Bouchard got his first point of the season yesterday as well. Stuart Skinner has been as bad as Stuart Skinner has been. They've been platooning him and Calvin Pickard. And then, is it Pickard or is it Talbot? I can never remember between these two teams. Hang on. Where are the rosters? Let's take a look here. It doesn't even show me, right? It's Pickard. Yeah, I was right about that. So you've got Skinner, you've got Pickard. Who they start tomorrow, we'll find out sometime during the day tomorrow. But either way, both these goaltenders, I mean, Skinner's got a .909 save percentage. Pickard, .865. So I would expect that Skinner starts. He had a good game against the Ottawa Senators the other night. So that's the reason why his save percentage has come up. But he struggled to start the season, as has the Edmonton defense. So as I outlined the other day for Calgary, especially given that this is the back-to-back and Sam Montembeault is going to be the goaltender of record tomorrow for the Canadiens, one thing is for certain. The Habs need to make sure they clog up the neutral zone. Don't allow McDavid and Draisaitl to get out there and work with their speed. Keep them to the outside. Don't let them take the middle of that ice. Make sure that you get pucks in deep. Force the Edmonton defense to make plays. They haven't been making them early on in the season. And if you play against that defense the way you played against Calgary's tonight, you could probably get away with it because Edmonton's defense is nowhere near as physical as Calgary's. Edmonton's defense relies a lot on individual skill as opposed to team play. And so that's where you can catch an advantage. And then there's always Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner, the master of the low shot because he's so big, but he opens up at the top very often. So the Canadiens need to look for the roof as opposed to keeping the puck on the ice. They also can generate a lot of rebounds against Stuart Skinner because he will kick out his legs. He will use his pads to kick pucks out as opposed to deadening the shot and controlling the rebound a little bit more. You know, there's so much that Edmonton does well offensively that lacks defensively. It's the reason why they haven't been able to finish the story and win the Stanley Cup. When you have a team that's so strong offensively, you need to have good defense. Even the Oilers teams of the 80s and 90s, you take a look at their defense, they had guys like Kevin Lowe and Charlie Huddy back there, and those two guys were defensive stalwarts. They ate up minutes. They played the game the way it was supposed to be played. They added Marty McSorley. He played well in the playoffs as well. So Edmonton had some depth on defense, despite the fact that they allowed a lot of goals because they allowed a lot of shots, right? Paul Coffey, not so great defensively, but holy hell, can he get the puck out with his feet really quick. So much that Edmonton used to do. They don't have those components right now. They don't have that smooth skating defenseman. They don't have the guy who's going to punish you physically like a McSorley. You know, they expected that from Darnell Nurse. They never got it. Instead, they got a big guy in the back who's afraid of his own shadow. So the Canadiens need to get in there. Slavkovsky, who had a fantastic, and I mean another fantastic game today for the Montreal Canadiens, needs to continue on that path because he'll piss off Nurse, and Nurse will take stupid penalties like he normally does. You know, any one of those guys that comes down low, guys like Anderson and Gallagher needs to be more physical against the Edmonton Oilers. And you know, given the fact that Edmonton is his hometown, Gallagher is going to come to play. He always does. So that's the key. Pressure the Oilers' defense. Get the pucks away from them. And don't shoot only when you get high danger chances. Against a guy like Skinner, he'll create those for you. So rattle the guy with shots. Don't be so selective as you were tonight against Wolf. Wolf's quality of goaltending forces you to be more selective because despite the fact that he's only 6 foot, he takes away a lot of the net. But Skinner, who's 6'4" or 6'5", I think, he's really big. And so he takes up a lot of net, even when he's on his knees. Although when he plays back in his net, he tends to leave the top of the net open. And his glove and blocker aren't as good as some other goaltenders in the National Hockey League. So there you have it. Shoot. Just rip the pucks on net from everywhere. Let Skinner make the mistakes that he normally makes. Don't limit the amount of chances you give him to screw up. Simple, right? And that the Canadiens can do that in droves. And if they do that, if they use their speed in transition, if they get in on a forecheck hard, pressure the Oilers defense, and shoot the puck as often as possible, they'll win rather easily tomorrow night. Right? The Edmonton Oilers are prone to give up goals. And the one thing the Canadiens also do extremely well against both McDavid and Draisaitl is they hem them in and they limit their opportunities. Now, granted, when we play at the Bell Center, Canadiens have last change. They can get the matchups that they want. But given the depth on this team, whether you get Evans' line out there or whether you get somebody like Newhook out there against Connor McDavid, more often than not, those guys are going to be able to do the job. The top two lines, I have no worry about those two lines, right? They're going to be able to do whatever needs to be done to stop Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, including getting physical with them, because we've seen that from even the little guys on this team. And the one thing I'd like to see a little bit more of, especially against the Oilers, is for Lane Hutson to shoot the puck. He did it tonight. He made a great play tonight to create a scoring chance where I think it was Coronado, he surprised near the blue line and just took off on him and got a partial break, got a good scoring chance against Dustin Wolf, but again, Wolf was there to make the save. But Lane Hutson needs to learn that he needs to shoot the puck. It's not all about creating offense by passing. So there you have it. There is your outlook and your game plan for tomorrow's game against the Edmonton Oilers. We'll see how that goes. But a great job by the Canadiens tonight, despite the fact that they really couldn't generate as much offense as they like. They did a great job mitigating what Calgary could do, thanks especially to the goaltending of Jakub Dobes. I'm not going to talk about goaltending controversies. Every other person in the world can talk about goaltending controversies. I know that there's a lot of media types out there that are saying, oh, yeah, no, Sam Montembeault is still the number one goalie of the Montreal Canadiens. Yes, he is. But there's not a two. It's a 1A, 1B at this point. Because given the fact that he's allowed only, 4 goals in 4 games? I think Dobes is allowed. His goals against average is 1.47. His save percentage is .950. When you look at Sam Montembeault, his goals against is .326 and his save percentage .857. Those are AHL numbers. Who's your number one? No controversy here. Both guys deserve to play. Sam's going to get back his game. Dobes just needs to continue what he's doing, and the Canadiens will have a really good tandem. I have no doubt. So tomorrow night, let's cheer for Sam to have a good game, and go Habs go.